Hello and welcome to Meraki Cardmaker Connect, a free virtual retreat hosted by Crafty Meraki. My name is Lynn and I have the honor and pleasure of welcoming you to our amazing retreat weekend on behalf of Bindu and everybody here at Crafty Meraki. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you are catching this live or on the replay. We have an exciting 2 days of crafting ahead of us. But before we get started, I hope you'll do me the favor of liking this video and sharing it out to your socials so more crafters can join the fun. There will be a total of 10 instructors who will share card making tips, techniques, and inspiration today and tomorrow. These workshops have been pre-recorded in real time, so you can follow along and create as you watch. Our instructors are in the live chat, so if you are watching live, please do say hello and let us know where you are watching from. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the live chat or in the comments if you are watching the replay. Our instructors will do their very best to answer you. Today's 6 workshops are divided into a morning session and an afternoon session with a 1-hour break in between. Tomorrow, we'll wrap up the retreat with an afternoon session featuring our last 4 workshops. This is the day 1 morning session, and when it ends, it will automatically redirect you to the afternoon session, so you won't miss a thing. Our instructors are crafting with the exclusive retreat bundle, specially curated by Bindu for our retreat today. This was such a popular kit, it sold out twice. However, if you didn't get a kit, feel free to craft along with what you have in your stash. If you prefer, you can sit back, watch these workshops, and chat along with our fabulous community. This virtual retreat will be available on replay here on the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel, so you can always come back and watch them again anytime you wish. I hope you'll take what you learn here today as inspiration for your next paper crafting project. You'll find that Crafty Meraki has a wide range of products that can be used on everything from card making to scrapbooking to home decor and more. So many of the ideas and projects shared by our fabulous instructors today and tomorrow can be used in a variety of different projects. I hope you'll share your makes to the Crafty Meraki Corner, our Facebook community group. We always love to see your beautiful creations. Without further ado, let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to Meraki Cardmakers Connect retreat. My name is Aditi Mahajan and my class is going to be all about the lovely layers. We are going to mix up different kinds of papers, mediums to create a fun birthday card, and I am sharing ideas that I hope will inspire you to use your kit. So first, let's just take a look at some of the prep work that I had asked you all to do. With the party balloons die set, there are 2 die cut layers, one on vellum, one on white iridescent cardstock. And then I asked you to save up all the negative die cut pieces of the balloons. So we have that. And then we are using this ombre glitter cardstock for our card base, as well as I had asked you to die cut the frosting layer of the Festive Delight die. So basically die cutting this entire piece and this piece on cardstock, a lighter color, on a darker color, as well as on the glitter cardstock. The rest, I have not die cut the hearts, but everything else I have die cut as well. So the frosting again on my colored cardstock, and the flowers and the leaves on white cardstock. Same with the candles. I did die cut one set of the candles on the glitter cardstock. These circles I have die cut on iridescent cardstock as well, just for added extra embellishments. So with that, we can then begin layering. So first up, I am going to cut the card base. Now, we are going to be creating an A2 sized card. And so for that, the card base that we have is, of course, 4¼ by 5½ inches. And that's the size of a card panel that I want to cut as well. So I'm going to cut the card panel from this ombre cardstock, and I want to use the blue purple side for the card today. And I'm just going to bring my paper trimmer here and do that. So I am going to die cut at 4¼ of an inch, just like that. And I'll set this piece aside for later use. And then I am going to trim this down further to 5½ inches, giving me a nice A2 card panel or card front for my card. I am going to save this up because ultimately we are going to be adding a sentiment, and just so everything coordinates well, I like to use the same cardstock. So I'm going to just set this aside for later use as well. So here I have a pre-cut white cardstock piece that's 8½ inches by 5½ inches, scored at 4¼ along that 8½ inch side, giving me a nice A2 card base. So I am just going to fold along the score line and burnish it well so that I have my A2 card base ready. So on the A2 card base will go my ombre cardstock card front, just like that. That is what I want to glue down there first. I am going to use some double-sided tape to do that. So I am going to just add a few strips of the tape right on my card base. Just like that. Once that's done, I am going to burnish it well with my tool. And I can then adhere that glitter cardstock card front to my card base. So with that, we already have a lovely background ready. And since this class is all about layers, we will now begin to add the layers that we have die cut. So first up, I am going to use this die cut panel from the party balloons on the iridescent cardstock and just see how that adds so much texture, interest, and contrast to our background already. I am going to use liquid glue to adhere this down. So I'm going to first set that, get that into place. So just applying liquid adhesive right at the border of this frame because I don't want too much glue oozing out and creating that shine on my glitter cardstock right there. So just this bit on the border will be enough. I'll just add touches on the bigger area where I have space for these um, the balloon string. That's where the balloon string comes from. So I'm just adding glue there, and then I am going to place this down on my card. Just make sure that everything is aligned perfectly well. That's the advantage of using liquid glue for this. You can move it around until you know that everything looks good. And then I'm just going to give it a little press, especially here where I was saying the strings begin, because I've added glue and I know that that can stick down to the glitter cardstock. Nicely burnish it just with my fingers. I'm not going in with any special tool for this, to make sure that this is down in place. And then I saved up those negative balloon pieces, remember? So the idea that I had in mind was to use these and inlay vellum balloon pieces over this, just 3 balloons for an added interest. So I'm going to just check which piece fits where and see which one I want to really add to my card. So that's stuck. I'm going to use my tweezers and just get that out. So this belongs here. I'm going to place it and see if I like that. I I like to just do 3 because I don't want to cover the entire beautiful glitter surface. That's the reason why I'm adding vellum. Vellum is just going to create further texture and contrast. So just adding that, and you can see that we've already used 3 layers on our card base for that beautiful texture and interest. Just these 3. So that looks good. I can set these pieces aside. And the advantage is I still have leftover from the iridescent cardstock. I have my vellum die cut panel. So when I'm using this, I can make 2 cards at one go. Now, because this is vellum, I will not be using liquid adhesive, but I don't want to use too much glue or anything because I don't want too much to be visible. So I'm going to pull out my 1/8 inch score tape right here and use that to inlay these pieces. Just add a tiny bit of it just so that I can glue these down. So I'm cutting very small strips of it, adding it to just one side of these vellum balloons. And that would be enough. My idea is only for it to stay in place and not fall out. So repeating the same step, I am going to remove the backing from this, and I'm just using my tweezers to make it easy for me. And then I can go in, place the balloon and just burnish it. So a little bit is visible there, but that's okay. I'll find a way to cover it and show that to you at the end when we have everything put together. But for now, this works. And you could, if this was not vellum for the inlay pieces, you could definitely use foam tape and bring in dimension. But just because this is vellum and then it's very difficult to cover up every portion, I am using double-sided adhesive. So nicely laying the negative die cut pieces, we have these 3 layers there, 3 balloons standing out and the rest covered with that ombre glitter cardstock, looking beautiful and stunning. So for now our card base is ready, our background is done. I can set this aside and we will start working on our main layers. So let's first assemble the cake itself. So we have this cake stand, again die cut on the iridescent cardstock. We have cake layers. So I am alternating the layers. I am mixing them up just to create a beautiful look with it. That's the idea. So I am going to bring all of these out. These are the cake layers. So you can see I've used shades of purple, lilac, because it goes well with the colors on this part of the ombre. And let me quickly show it to you. That is still lighter, not taking away from our glitter. And I did bring back the glitter layers on the frosting, right? So that is how I am layering it up. I am mixing everything up and showing you how it is easy to use colored cardstock for dies like this to create quick and easy embellishments. I am not going to add inking details to the cake right here. I am going to layer it up as is, and I will add ink blending details to the other elements that I have die cut on white cardstock. So the base of the cake, the first part, that's the first element, that's how it looks like, and we want the glitter frosting to peek through as well. What I'm going to do is use this darker colored cardstock layer and lay that up on the frosting but offset it, and I will use liquid adhesive to put these 2 layers together. So I'm just going to apply liquid glue at the top and then use this colored cardstock layer and place that underneath just like that, making sure enough is peeking through. I can clean any excess glue right there and nicely give that a press so that both these layers adhere well together. So that is done and that looks good, and that is the layer that will go right on top here to complete our first part of the cake, the lower tier of the cake. And I want to add dimension. So although I'm adding layers, my idea today is also to show you how to sort of add depth, dimension and details. So I'm going to go in with foam tape for that. I'm going to cut slightly thinner strips of it so that it can be hidden, and I will add it to my frosting layer right on the inside there, just like that, and then I can adhere that to the cake. So laying that down, making sure it looks good, giving it a firm press, and that creates so much more dimension. You can see adding that extra layer and that layer of shine as well. Now that is going to go right here on the cake stand. And just to balance this dimension out, I'm thinking if I want to add extra dimension right here at the base as well, between the cake stand and the cake layer. So I am going to do that. Cut two more strips of foam tape and add that right there at the base of the cake, and just repeat the same step here. Since this is iridescent cardstock, right on my foam pieces I am going to add a touch of the liquid glue so that nothing falls off eventually. And then I like to do it at an angle because it helps me see the straight line or where everything is centered. So at this step, you will have to do what works best for you, really. This works for me, so that looks good. So everything is at the same level, looking nice. Now comes the second layer of the cake, and I'm going to repeat the same step. So on my ombre glitter frosted layer, I'm going to add liquid glue, pick the solid layer of the frosting, adhere that down, overlaying that, adding this extra layer for the frosting. That looks good. And then I am going to again use foam, but this time a thinner strip to create that interest. And I can use just one single strip since this is a smaller piece. I think that will work better. And add that to my cake base right there. Just like that, nicely making sure everything is pressed together. And this one is going to come right here. So I think it needs to be right here at the top. That is where it looks better. There is a slit right here, but since I have glued two layers together, my slit is no longer present. So if that's something you want to do, you need to be careful so that you could just slide this in. But what I am going to do is just glue that right there over that layer. So I'm not using foam tape. I am just going to use liquid glue and add that, centering it again, making sure that I have the right center for it, and adhere that. So it isn't gone in the slit really, but it looks fine. Everything looks good. I will be covering it up with fruits and the flowers, so nothing to really worry. And then comes the frosting. So I have just die cut on both the dark and the light again to create a little double shadow kind of a thing for the frosting. So just offsetting it slightly, just a wee bit, not too much. You can achieve that look by creating that, or just glue one top of the other to create a little more depth and dimension. And I think that can also work. I could also just do something like this for a double layer of the frosting. So I'm going to offset it slightly, leaving the bottom. So I will add liquid glue here at the top and adhere the lighter piece of the frosting to that, just like that. And again, I have it sealed, so I can release the seal for this one. And I'm going to see if I will be able to tuck it in right there. I can just place it like that. So I'm going to use liquid glue again at the bottom and glue that to my cake. So the cake is all layered up. We have the layers all set and ready. That looks good. Everything is complete for that. Now we are going to add detail to our other elements by ink blending them. So setting this aside, and I just want to place it on the card and show you how that is already looking yum and delicious. Everything coordinated so well together. I am happy. So I'm going to set this aside and I will then color the layer. So I'm going to use a sticky mat, place that on my work surface and lay out the elements for coloring. So I want to use the flowers and the leaves, and I've just die cut these multiple times. So I'm just going to pick out all the elements from here just to make sure they are on my sticky mat, which is going to make it very easy for me to ink blend everything. Picking out the leaves and the flowers. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've die cut the flowers 5 times. And I have some extra leaves. And then of course I will be using the candles. I am going to place the candles that I die cut on white cardstock as well, and leave the others as is. I am not too sure about using the strawberries and cherries for this cake, so I'm just going to save this and set that aside. Now, I would like to bring in a touch of contrast here, since we have all this blue and purple going on. I want to add a pop of color with contrast. So that to me would be yellow and green. And that is what I'm going to bring on my flowers. So I have some inks right here. I have fresh lemon and honey drizzle for the yellow. And then I have grass field and shadow creek for the green. So I'll first go ahead and color the yellow. And I'm just going to use my micro blending tools for this to add the color there. So I am going to first just color the flame of the candle yellow right there. That is what I wanted to color in. I can cover the base with the glitter cardstock that I've already die cut. So just adding touches of yellow there. I am then going to go in, lift ink with my blending tool, and then in small circular motions just start adding color. And I'm focusing more on adding it on the center and then just pulling that outward. So my tips are going to be very light, almost white, but the base is going to have all that beautiful yellow. I'm going to repeat the same process and color all the flowers. So starting with the base and just blending that outwards, making sure I have lighter tips. Repeating the same step again. I am coloring the flowers with fresh lemon. And then once I have this fresh lemon down in place, I can go on to adding the honey drizzle. So I'm going to use the same blending tool, pick in the honey drizzle and just darker my flower center, just like that. So I'm not going to do too much, but make sure I have enough right there to darken that. And then just gently spread my color out with this flicking motion, just so that I don't have those harsh lines remaining. So that was as easy as adding detail to the flowers. So the yellow is done with. I can set that aside. And I will then bring in my green for the leaves. So grass field and shadow creek. Again, starting with the light color first, I am going to gently ink blend all over the leaf lightly. I'm doing this light-handedly just to make sure I have one area dark, one area light, just to tint them with the green. I can then go in with the darker shade and add shading, but first the idea is to lay the ink color with the lighter of the two colors that I'm using. And this you can see is not too much, like the majority of the card is that blue purple, and the contrast that I'm adding with the yellow and green is minimum. The number of elements are lesser when compared to those that are blue and purple, and that creates a sense of balance. So when I'm using complementary colors to add contrast, it is very important that I don't overpower and add the same proportion of the two. It is then that it gives that unique touch just by doing this. Now with the lighter color laid out, I'm picking Shadow Creek and I'm just going to go over the edge of the leaf to create that darker shading for the leaf. So just adding a little detailed touch of the blending there. For that, not covering up the entire parameter of the leaf and still managing to get some highlights, some shadows, and naturalistic shading. So I am just going to finish that again for all the leaves, adding touches of that Shadow Creek, making sure that it smoothens out and is not too harsh at places. So blending all of that outwards. Again, this is something that you have to decide how much of you enjoy or like. By that I mean, I love creating these highlights and shadows, and so I go back in to add details here and there. But sometimes just doing it once is more than enough, so you could definitely stop when you feel like the elements are looking good to you. That's the only key here. So I have all those elements colored in. That is looking great. I can then set this aside. And while I'm right here, I'm going to pick those glitter candle that I have already die cut and adhere these to my white candles right here. So just picking these two out. I am going to trim off the flames because I have the yellow flames right there. So just using my scissors, I am going to gently snip it off right where it meets and starts the wick, the flame. So that is out of the way. I can then add liquid glue right here to the base. So let's see, just lifting it off, adding liquid glue to the base, and I will then lay out one of the glitter candles. And again, this is layering it up. What this has done is given me a sturdier candle base, made it thicker, and then I have that yellow light as well. So I'm going to repeat the same on this one, adding glue. Oops, just holding it right here, lifting off that layer of the glitter candle, placing it, aligning everything well, and firmly pushing, pressing that down so that both the layers adhere, and then we have colorful candles. So I'm going to just lift off these elements and place them here on the side and bring back my card to complete the layers. So just removing all of these elements, I can then get rid of my sticky mat, bring back my card. And then the first important thing is I need to work with the placement. So even before that, for the sentiment, I want to use the Celebrate die from the set. And I haven't yet die cut this because sometimes it's very important to have the other elements in place just to know what color would work well. So I'm thinking of using the Celebrate somewhere here at the bottom and adding the cake right there. That works for me. So once I have that in place, what I'm going to do is use foam tape and adhere the layers down. Just adhere that entire element down on the base first. I'm going to use bits and pieces on the cake stand itself and add them to the base and see how that works. That looks good. I need smaller pieces on the sides to balance it all out, so I'm just going to cut that as well. And then just recheck. Before gluing, I always like to keep doing the dry fits to make sure everything looks good. I then need foam tape here to make sure everything is at the same level and not hanging off in the air. So I am going to add strips of tape right here at the back and again do a little dry fit to see if that is working for me and if that is looking good. So that is definitely working. I just have some extra foam tape showing and peeking through. So I'm going to cut it off at an angle just so that nothing is visible. And then I will remove the backing. Again, I am going to definitely apply liquid adhesive right over this just so that everything stays put and doesn't come out. Considering the number of layers and depth and dimension I have on this card, I definitely want to make sure that it is firmly adhered and stays in place. So getting rid of the foam backing, sometimes tweezers help, sometimes I just have to go in with my fingers and nails and pull out the backing. And the last one left, that looks good. I am going to add liquid adhesive like I told you. Better to be safe than having all the elements falling out when you give the card to someone. So I'm going to add that right there. Firmly press so that everything is adhered. And that looks good. I need a little foam tape behind the frosting just so that it is looking like it is on there and not just hanging in the air. So I'm just going to cut tiny pieces of it, just as much as needed. And first I'll see if one piece is going to work. So I'm just going to lift it slightly, wiggle it. And I will actually add two pieces already. So I'll just double it up, making sure that there's enough depth for it. So one piece over the other. That is looking good. I will add a touch of the liquid adhesive and then firmly press it down, and that works. So I'm just going to lift it and show you. Just see the dimension that we've achieved with the layers, creating a nice 3D look. Now just adding and assembling the rest of the elements. So first, let's see, let us see where to add the flowers and then balance it out with the leaves. So I have these candles as well, which I haven't really thought about where I want to place them. Oh wow. I actually don't mind placing them even on the cake stand on the either sides of it instead of having them on the cake. Maybe I'll just do that. So I'm going to leave them aside here since I am still not sure. But I will actually start placing the flowers. So I definitely want one here. So it's always a good idea to first place your elements and see where you like them, then glue them. And I'm just going to do that, adding a flower and adding two leaves. And you see the pop that I was talking about, just that element of contrast really makes it shine through. Now I can add one right here, just like that. Again, add two leaves. The leaves are adding such a great balance to these flowers. Just like that. That looks good. I am going to then see where else can I add a flower. I don't want it to take away as well from the cake, but I definitely want three, not four, but three right there. I have something about threes. Odd number to me gives a sense of balance to my cards. So I quite enjoy when I have three layers right there. Now I definitely want the sentiment here. So what I'm actually going to do is first adhere what I have placed already, and I'm just checking if I want a piece of foam tape or not really. So I'm going to use liquid adhesive, add that, glue the flower down in place, and then add glue to my leaves and tuck that behind the flower, just like that. One more leaf right here. Just pulling it out slightly, turning it and giving it a good push. And I have some glitter dots left over from a project I was working on previously. These are very tiny glitter circles, so I can actually use these to add flower centers. So I will do right that. Just bring in these from a previous project, and I save all of these just for times like this when I know it can come handy. And you can see just that pop. It's white glitter cardstock, but it adds so much to that flower. So I'm going to first glue the leaves, tuck them in. That way I know I have the placement right. Tiny dab of the glue, adhere the next leaf down, and then I can add glue to the flower and adhere that down as well. So tucking that right in, that looks good. I am then going to add glue and add this flower center to it. And I am just using my finger, getting rid of any excess glue, and that is looking great. I am going to just set this aside and die cut the sentiment first, and bring back my glitter here on the sentiment. So bringing back the glitter ombre background to the foreground. And since I have used vellum layers here for my background layer, I will die cut the word on vellum. So I'm just going to do that right away, bringing my sidekick, and I have the word celebrate. I have this paper that I had saved up for the sentiments in the same orientation. I am going to trim a piece of that ombre cardstock for the sentiment, just like that. And I will first die cut this so that I have the words die cut with the ombre paper. So that is done. I can set that aside, and I will then use a piece of vellum from my stash and die cut the outline layer. So I have E stuck right here on the plate. I'm going to get rid of that and just die cut my outer layer for the word celebrate. So that is done. I can put everything on the side. And I will first adhere the letters to the vellum outline. Just bringing everything back, releasing them from the paper. And I will use liquid adhesive. So you can always apply double-sided sheets, the glue sheets, and then die cut the word, so that way you have adhesive at the back of the letters. You know, I always say you can do this, but I never remember to do it when the time actually comes. I always remember later once I've die cut everything. But that's okay. I am going to apply liquid glue and start arranging. Again, I like to turn it or place it at an angle because that just gives me a better view of how I'm laying out the elements and if everything is centered and perfect. So that I am going to clean off any excess glue or anything oozing out. I don't want that drying there. And yeah, just complete adding all of these words to my vellum outline. Using the liquid adhesive. So just dabbing a little, adding E to celebrate, then coming in with the letter L. I'm sure all of you who have purchased this kit, you are going to absolutely love this glitter ombre cardstock. It is stunning. There is no fuss with the glitter and shine coming out and falling apart and sticking everywhere. And it just gives stunning results, not only for backgrounds, but like you can see here, adding details to your die cards, adding details to your sentiments. There are so many possibilities with this. Absolutely wonderful. I am in love with this paper. And then, of course, all the other products. I think I didn't have enough supplies for birthday cards, you know, balloons and cakes. And this layering die, the cake die, I think is just a stunner. So, definitely the kit has so many possibilities and options. I think it is going to be a great addition to your stash of supplies, and you will keep using these supplies over and over again for different cards. I am going to share the other cards that I've created using the same kit. But the best part about today's retreat is just that you are going to get a lot of inspiration using that one single kit. So many ideas, a fabulous lineup of designers, and everyone has stunning projects. So there is something for everyone here. And I know that you are going to have a great time just working through your kit and going through all the classes and recreating and just having fun with it. So I am on to my last letter. You can clearly see how I jumbled up while I was putting the letters together instead of going in the order. But that's okay. I know where they go, so it doesn't really matter too much. But just look at that. Look at that gorgeous ombre for a sentiment. Isn't that stunning? Isn't that something so easy to create? So I am going to bring this back, and this is where I want to add the sentiment right there. I think it looks perfect right here. So I definitely need foam tape layers. Again, I am going to cut thin strips and add it mostly to these longer letters, where I have the L, where I have the B. My foam tape can be hidden behind these layers. So I'm going to check if this is enough, because the A is going to rest on the cake stand. I definitely need some behind C, so I'm going to do that. Just snip off and cut out a thin layer. Place that right there. That looks good. So I have a little extra, and I save up my extras right here on my roll because they then come handy for another project. I am then just going to release the packing from the foam here, and I will add dots of it as well as a little on A, since that is going to go over the base of the cake stand. Bring my cake card back. I was saying cake. After this, I definitely want to eat cake. I'm sure everybody wants to eat cake after this. So I am going to just adhere that down in place. And oh my god, I am so happy with the look of this card. Absolutely stunning. Again, bringing back, like I was saying, the background to the foreground, tying everything in together. I now have space to put my third flower layer. Definitely, it is not needed at the top. I am going to rest it here at the bottom. Or let's see, at the bottom here. Just playing around and seeing where it looks better. But I know for sure I need a third layer of the flower. I was thinking not on the top, but now I'm thinking I can actually, let's see, squish it in there between that layer and have just a part of it peek through. That looks beautiful actually. So I'm sliding it in that slit from that cake frosting, just sliding it in like that. So having part of the flower peeking through, and then I can just tuck in leaves. So holding that, dabbing it, and tucking my leaf right there, picking back another leaf and tucking that in, just like that. So that is looking good. Yes, that is looking good. I'm going to definitely bring back another flower center for this one, just so everything is well coordinated. Another piece. I'm sorry, my arm is coming in the view, but just like that. And I will then clean up this excess glue oozing out. And then you remember the iridescent circles that I had die cut? I'm going to just bring those back because I thought these were very cool to add a little extra touch of something to my balloons. And what that'll do, it'll cover up that glittered double-sided, not glitter, sorry, that double-sided tape that I used to adhere my balloons, and no one will know. So one part has been covered here with the cake stand, and the other part here I am just going to add over the balloons, just like that. And that is another layer to add texture and depth. So I'm going to glue those with liquid glue. Again, a dot of the glue will go a long way, and I will press that down further. So we don't need any extra embellishments per se. Since I have die cut this, I can just add this down in place, clean up any excess glue, and that is it. And I still have the candles, remember? So I'm just going to check and see if I really need the candles somewhere, if I really like them somewhere. And if they don't fit anywhere, that's okay. I will use them for another project. I don't have to add a candle to my cake just to make it fit, because I already like the way this looks. And again, since I like working in threes, I have just two of these balloons covered in, and I want a third, creating that balance right there. So I am going to actually adhere two more of these down here on this particular balloon, just on the left side instead of the right side. So just picking that fiddly little bit and adding it onto the balloon, just to create that sense of balance, texture, and detail. I love adding splatter, so for me no card is complete without that. Here I'm just going to add a little white splatter just on the cake, nowhere else. So I like to use white acrylic ink for this, and I am going to add a little splatter right here on the cake. A little is going here on the sides, but that doesn't matter. I am okay with that as long as I have more right here on the cake. So I'm gonna spread it out slightly here and there, but that's it. That amount of texture again is an added layer of interest for me. So this card is complete, and one extra touch I added, a layer of glossy accent just on the top to get that glazed frosted look. So here is a closer look at the lovely layers that bring about the depth, dimension, and the wow factor to this card. Now let me show you other cards that I have created using the same kit. So remember, we have extra pieces from die cutting these cake layers on the other layers of cardstock. I used those up and left over flowers as well as the cherries and the strawberry. And I have put together this card using those supplies. I have used my die cut as a stencil for the background. But just look at that. Again, lovely layers, details that make for a really great card. Apart from that, I have this card, again using ink blended layers, glitter cardstock, using foam to add dimension underneath the balloons. Let's see what else. I have one more card, and that is this one. Again, inlaying some balloon pieces using the EAPs and finishing that off. So with that, I have all of these gorgeous cards that I was able to create using this one single kit. And I hope that I have inspired you with ideas to get started. Again, like I already told you, the entire retreat is going to be filled with tons of inspiration and ideas, and you're going to have so much fun learning from various designers. And if you create along, and if you are inspired and you create a card inspired by my class or any one of the classes, do share them over on Crafty Meraki's Facebook group so that we can see what you have been creating inspired by the workshops in this retreat. So I am going to sign off here and hand over to Ishani so that you can enjoy the next class with her. Take care and bye bye.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ishani. I'm from India. Some of you may recognize me from being a design team member at Crafty Meraki or from the Cardmaker Success Summit. Some may also know me as Quillish, as that's what I call myself on social media. I'm so glad that you're here and joining me at Meraki Cardmaker Connect virtual retreat. Let me show you some of the ideas and techniques that we will learn today in my class. I'm going to show you how you can stretch your supplies with inlaid die cutting, which will help you to look at your supplies in a different light. Here are the examples that I had shared earlier on my Instagram. Here I have done inlaid die cutting with the word die, and here I have used the background balloon die for inlaid die cutting. Here are the two cards that we will be making in the live session today. Let's connect over the live chat for any queries, and if you're able to stick till the end, I have a bonus idea and a great way to use your supplies in a different way. Let's jump in and have fun with Crafty Meraki supplies. I love to use various techniques for my cards, and today I'm going to use this party balloons dies for die cut inlay. And you can use inlay technique in various ways. Like in this card also I have done inlay, and you can see glittery cardstock which has been inlaid back in the die cut. But today I'm going to focus on the technique partial inlay. So you don't have to use all the balloons to put back in the die cut, and we can make scenes also while using partial inlay technique. First I take watercolor paper, and then I'm going to use little watercolor, or you could also use something as easy as a little acetate and some water-based markers. So I'm sure you have some in your kitty too. I want to make a sky in my background, so this is a bit of blue color on the acetate, and I'm going to spray some water and do some controlled smooshing on my background. I'll just dilute it a little more, and this watercolor cardstock is not cut to size. I'll cut it later when I am ready with my upper die cut portion. So here you have a very easy background ready. You could also use watercolors and just make paintbrush strokes for imitating sky, but I am happy with this. Very organic and looks very lovely. Now next I have to do is die cut a white colored cardstock and select the 3 balloons that I want to keep on my card. So I could do this and this, or maybe these 3 together here, or these 3. I'll go and die cut a piece of white cardstock and bring it back to you. Here I have my die cut pieces. Some of them have fallen off, but I don't need them also. It is more about figuring out which balloons do you want. We could also have a row of balloons like this, like they're flying up, or you could also do 3 of these. So why not have a masculine card and a feminine card and trying both these layouts. First, where we can use these 3, and for the second card, let's go ahead and do this. So for coloring my balloons, I have taken 2 shades of pink in distress ink. This is spun sugar, picked raspberry, squeezed lemonade and spiced marmalade, shaded lilac and wilted violet. And I have the balloons put in a way how they are on my die cut. So this will be how it will look. So probably I will do the yellow color in the bottom balloon, and then as I go up I change the colors like this. I want to create a 4 dimension on my balloon, with ink blending. So first I'm just going soft with my lighter color. This is squeezed lemonade. So I just go around my balloon, and on this side I'm going to put a little more color, so the rest is I'll take a little orange just to go spice marmalade here, just to go around my balloon so it looks a little more dimensional. Come back with my yellow. I think this looks nice and dimensional. Maybe a little. So basically we keep one highlighted portion on our die cut. Similarly we will do with pink. If you have a small brush, you can try with that also.
Now that I see some of you joining the live session, a warm welcome to all of you. I'm Ishani and you are watching me do this ink blending on the balloon, which we will use for our inlaid die cutting technique for making a birthday card. I'm from India and I would love to know where all in the world are you watching from. You can also re-watch the video and do the card at your own pace. And if there is any doubt or query, you can get in touch with me. I would love to know what are your favorite color combinations for feminine cards. If you're watching live, let me know in the chat below about your foolproof color schemes. I sometimes refer to a color wheel and also love to play at color challenges on the blog world. But if given a choice, I'll add pink and purple everywhere. What about you?
After our pink, we will carry on and do our violet. So basically, if you've seen, I have gone on one side a little heavy handed, but first I only go with my lighter ink. Then I go around, and I don't want much color on the top area here, so I go with very careful strokes so I don't put more color on the sides. Now we have a little color. Now I'll just come dark Now I'll just come with wilted violet, my dark color, on the sides, so it gives more dimension to the balloon. And here we have our balloons ready. We could also get a little, now that I see it, I think I can get a little pink here. So here you have my 3 balloons ready. Now that I have this, I will get my light shaded lilac again, just to smoothen it out. Next I'm going to cut out my background panel, because our balloon panel is A2 size. I take a top folding A2 size cardstock that I have folded, and I am adding strong red tape. You can use any medium of gluing, adhering, like what you like, because it is watercolor paper and it may warp, so I wanted to add the strong tape. Also, I may not have cut it perfectly to its size, so I am going ahead and with a guillotine trimmer I am going to chop off the excess. And here I have my die cut balloon frame, which will be perfect over this, and this excess I'm going to cut off later. So going ahead, I am going to adhere glue on my frame. And so behind our balloons is our sky. I'll let it dry, and till then let us prepare for our sentiment. Also part of this kit is this Celebrate die, which has a shadow and the word, the letter cuts out separately. And now that we have this card almost ready and we know what are the colors that we are going to use, I'm going to use a similar colors, or actually the same colors, and I'm going to make my own cardstock. So for which I'm going to use wilted violet, I just want to check with this die if the purple is coming till half, 1/3 of the word. Next I take picked raspberry, And the last is squeezed lemonade. Picked raspberry and squeezed lemonade will make the orange tinge that we have on our balloons. And here we go. We have a colorful cardstock ready. So I'm going to die cut my celebrate from this. And actually, if you put both of them together like so, adhere it with the tape and die cut it, you will get a frame in which you can do die cut inlay, like how we have done for this. In this we used a white colored cardstock and the glitter paper, but in this we can have a frame and the colorful celebrate. I will probably not use the frame for this card, but let's just have it ready for some other card one day. I can use it. I go ahead and die cut it. And for this card I'm going to have a black shadow. What we could do is just die cut the whole thing again and do inlay piecing of each of these letters, or probably we could just have the shadow for this card and die cut the shadow and place all my alphabets, all the letters, to create celebrate. So here I have my die cut celebrate ready, and I can die cut a black cardstock similar way, but I choose to do just the shadow for this card. One of the things that you can do is take off all the alphabets just temporarily put the shadow and add your alphabets. Easily and without much fuss, without worrying about spacing. With a pen like this, you could also just go and mark inside of your shadow. As I'm gluing all the pieces together, I would love to know, what do you prefer, die cutting or stamping, especially for sentiments? Personally, I feel die cutting adds great textures and a wow factor, especially when we give a card to a non-card maker. They always fancy, how was that cut? And I love to keep them guessing and think it was all done with the scissors. And with this ready, I will take off my frame that I have added. And here we have a beautiful celebrate ready. So here I have my frame adhered onto my background. Now I'll just cut off this extra sheet here. We will keep it very simple. We will just place our balloons back to their place. And with glue I am going to inlay them back into their place. And because we are not inlaying all of the balloons, this is going to be partial inlay. And for the sentiment that we have cut, I'll use foam tape, little bit of black for the thread of our balloons so that they pop up. And now with our threads ready, let us just adhere our celebrate. And here we have a beautiful, clean and simple celebrate card ready with partial inlay technique. You can add some sequins here. I'll just add them and get it ready. I am adding these beautiful sparkles. These are Meraki Sparkle Rainbow, and these will add the right bling for my card. Here you go. Okay, let's go ahead and make another card. This time for the men. Let's do it a little bluish tones. And for this card, I'm going to use this dark teal base. And this time I'm going to use double-sided adhesive sheet. The reason I'm using this for this card is because I'm going to do a little more of inlaid die cutting. And I have cut it to a size that it just leaves a little border of teal on the sides. So first I'm going to die cut a white colored cardstock with this balloon die. I want the outer frames in white, and the way we used ink smooshing for my previous card, this time I'm going to do inlaid die cutting and use a light blue colored cardstock to imitate our sky. So let's cut all these balloons out. We have to be careful because I don't want to miss the balloons from white and the frames. The sky part we will do in light blue. So this will be a lot of inlaid die cutting. Here I have all my white die cut. The balloons have come off, but it doesn't matter. We're going to lay them again. This is not a difficult die to inlay. The things that I don't want are these pieces, which will be sky. So I have to let them go. I'll remove these off. And the balloons I'm going to inlay later. With the frame ready, I'll gently remove my other sheet from the adhesive, and I'm going to lay my balloon outline die cut. And after this is done, I'm going to one by one adhere the lower balloons. Using an adhesive sheet is definitely easier for inlaid die cutting. I want to keep these 4 balloons empty. You have to be very careful about the smallest of little pieces. And here we have all of it ready. Now I could have actually left this as my background, but I want to piece this light blue colored cardstock which will imitate the sky for me. So I will go ahead and die cut this out of my balloons as well. The way this paper has die cut, I can actually just lay it over and gently push my pieces of sky that I want to piece on my cardstock. And then I got 2 balloons as well. So I will just lay all of them back into place. Inlaid die cutting actually is very therapeutic and you will enjoy if you like to solve puzzles. And this one actually looks like we have just solved a puzzle. So here I have only these 4 balloons left. Let's go ahead and see what we can do with this. So next I have these 4 colors of cardstock that I have cut from the same die. These are the 4 die cuts. I took these colors which are like closest in the color wheel together, and I'm going to add some dimension with the stress inks. Starting with the light green, I'm going to add little more lawn in the bottom. For evergreen, I'm using evergreen bow. For the lighter blue, I'm going with broken china. And this dark teal, I'm going with Mermaid Lagoon. And now it's time to piece all these balloons together. And here you have the body of a card ready. The only thing which is missing here is the sentiment. Also that we have adhesive sheet beneath this, so it will be a good idea if we just with bone folder press all of this down. so nothing comes off. So for the sentiment, I am using the same light blue colored cardstock that I have used for my sky here, and I am using the same Celebrate die that I have used for my previous card. And similarly, how we did earlier, I am going to add this frame here and piece all my little alphabets into their groove. I have die cut the letters with black cardstock. I did it twice and I layered them together. Here I have my Celebrate ready, which I have mounted on foam tape, and I'm going to adhere it here. And here are some Magical Iris Opal Gems by Crafty Meraki that I'm going to add onto my balloons to add some sparkle. I hope you like these two cards today. And now that I still have some time left, let me show you these cute little tags. Who does not love cupcakes? And do you want to see how quick they were to make? Let's check out how you can use this beautiful effortless artistry paper by Crafty Meraki, which comes in the kit. This effortless artistry paper, these are beautiful to use for your cards, but because there are so many of them, how many cupcake cards are you going to make? But I have a very quick and simple way to use these, and we will be using all those scrap pieces of paper, because maybe something light in color, white. I'll just use this. Let's go ahead and tell you how am I going to do it. So first what we can do is just choose the cupcakes that you want to use for your so in one go we're going to cut out all our cupcakes. So maybe, I don't know, maybe just get this out. So what I'm going to do is take this, and now that I have all my cupcakes here, I have also all the coordinating dies along with it. So you get the be your own kind of cupcake coordinating dies, and I am going to attach all of these with the help of a little washi tape. And because they are coordinating, you could also, so now that I have all my dies here, I am going to take my die cutting machine and I am going to die cut all my cupcakes. So I start with doing my die cutting, and I have I use a rough sheet just above my main paper. For all the die cuts I do it, because even though I may not have any marks on my top plate, there is some indentation that comes on the die cuts. Here are all the cupcakes ready, and now for some more fun, I'm going to use the scrap paper that I had shown you earlier. You can use any cardstock you may have. I'm sure you have something that I'm going to show you. Next, I am going to get my scrap paper and I'm just going to measure my cupcake. And so if I have it till here, I am going to create a fold here. And cut it out. Then the next, they will all probably be similar because they are similar in size. And now I have two of these ready. Next what I'm going to do is the cupcake that I have cut here, I'm going to take a cardstock and I'm going to cut it in a way that this part is left. So I'm not going to cut it throughout. When I die cut this, you will still have this fold. Similarly for another, I am going to cut it out like this. And because now we are cutting two sheets of cardstock together, you may need to have a metal shim or any shim for that matter. Or any shim. It can easily come off through the die. And now you can see that what we have here is a small little card on which you can add your cupcake. And this can become small little tags for birthdays or for any party. You just have to go ahead and glue it down. So I take some glue, I add onto my little card, and here you go. Isn't this a cute way to add sweet little cupcakes? And you can probably do it one of the weekends, or I think it's so easy to do and quick. You can keep it in your stash of all your gift wrappers. So I have some white die cuts for the same purpose. So this is just utilizing your cardstock one day after you've cleaned up and you feel you have a lot of scrap cardstock available. You can just adhere them all and make small little cupcake tags. Well, you can use this idea with any of your dies. You can color yourself, or you can use the effortless artistry paper by Crafty Meraki. There are various designs, and here you have quick and easy little tags that you can use and write a little message. And you can go ahead and add a little tag on some gifts. Perfect. Also, if you're new to Crafty Meraki, I would also want you to check out the beautiful Meraki Paradise, which are Capture My Heart, and you can make quick boxes with these dies. They are perfect for a normal size die cutting machine, and you can make boxes like such. And you have a little quick tag to go along with this sweet little treat box. So all these tags will be perfect for your gifts. You can also use all these little sentiments, just cut them out and use them over your gifts. And I hope you enjoyed this quick little idea of using the EAP Beautiful Cupcakes collection, and you will use it for your next tag. I hope you liked the ideas that we shared today. And if there is any doubt or anything you would want to ask, you can check out my social media handles and get connected with me. Thank you for all your time and love. Let's hope to meet again. Take care. Happy crafting. Bye.
Well, hello crafty friends, and welcome to the Delightful Details workshop today for Crafty Meraki's virtual retreat. So I'm so happy you guys could join me. Now this video, as you've probably seen in the other ones, is meant to be able to, so that you can follow along if you would like to. I'll try to go as slow as I can to give you time to do things. The one thing I want to mention right now, so if you've got the items that you're going to use while I'm maybe going over everything, if you could just basically grab the party balloons. So this is that gorgeous like cover die with all the balloons. It cuts out like a nice frame, which I'm sure you've probably seen already. I've already cut this out 6 times, okay? Six times. And I'm saying 6 dependent on your cardstock. So my cardstock is a bit thinner. I tend to use the Recollections cardstock that you get from Michael's because I just get it a bit cheaper down here and or up here in Canada. So if your cardstock is thicker, I'd say cut 4 or 5. And if it's thinner like the Recollections cardstock, if you know what I'm talking about, it's not as thick, I would cut 6. So I've got 6 here and I've got those ready to go. You can see I still have little bits that I still need to kind of poke out of here. So there is the Crafty Meraki Bling Buddy if you happen to have that. On this side it's not a pick, it's a ball. So I tend to leave this for embellishment. I have another one that I just kind of use to pick out the little bits here. So there's like the little portions of the balloon
that kind of get stuck. Otherwise, this die, it cuts so perfectly. So you don't really have to worry. So while I'm doing a bit of talking here, you can go ahead and grab whichever cardstock that you want in your background. Now I'm picking colors that I think go well together. You can pick whichever colors you like. And I did, I think, mention on the craft list darker or deeper colors, especially for inks and stuff. Choose whatever you like, because I think I kind of changed my mind on that. So you can go ahead and pick as we go along. As I said, I'll try and keep it nice and slow so that you guys can keep up. So I've got like a light pink cardstock here. I used the party balloons, cut it 6 times. Go ahead and get going with that. And as I continue to talk, you can listen along. If you're not going to work with me, you can go ahead and just listen to what I have to say. So here are all of the products that I'm going to be using today. For the most part, I have listed some extra products on that that supply list. It's really just a guideline. You don't have to, you know, stick to it hard and steady. You know, you can change your mind as you go along, and I think that's the beauty of the creative process. So this bundle, it includes this gorgeous cardstock. I mean, look how pretty this is. And I'm sticking with like a pink and purple and like a light green theme. So, you know, these types of colors would work really nice. You could actually use this maybe as your background. I like the change in tone, and maybe cut this out as maybe your top layer. It's dependent on how you want your card to look. So we're not going to use too much of the glitter cardstock, but I find that it comes in handy for accents. So I did mention for accents, have some specialty cardstock, which you have in your bundle if you don't have anything else. I also have some matte gold cardstock here, which I will be using for the tray for the tiered cake here. Let's put this aside. The other colors of cardstock I have are like a light purple and green, so you'll notice that these colors kind of have a nice pastel look and go together nicely. The inks are going to be a bit darker because they're just going to be used to highlight things that we use. So you will need like a blending brush. Any type of blending brush will do. I've got the Festive Delight die set here. I will be cutting most of the stuff on here out, so I would recommend just cutting this out of some white cardstock, or as we go along, I will be using colored vellum. So if you have colored vellum, go ahead and use that. I'm using the pink vellum here. I'm going to be using that with my flowers to just give like a bit of a different look. Those are the little details, you know. You don't always have to use cardstock. Use specialty cardstock, use vellum, use something different, something maybe with a like the corrugated cardstock, something like that. I also have some plain white vellum here, which I will be using as well. So please have that on hand. If you don't have colored vellum, don't worry about it. One option is to use some Copics and color one side of it and then let it dry and cut that out. Or you can just use any other specialty cardstock, including the glitter cardstock, okay? All options. Nothing is hard and fast. We have the Celebrate die. This is going to be our sentiment for this card. And the Easy Lights, which is also one of the details we're adding. Those cute little lights in the background are going to look really pretty, especially if you open this at nighttime or have it out while you're lighting your cake. And then we also have the shaker bits, which come in the kit, which I'm going to be using as subtle as I can, because as you look, it is a red color and we're going with like a light pink theme here. So we'll see how everything comes together. I hope that you like this workshop, and also have some glitter on hand. I have some chunky glitter. I don't have it with me. Any type of glitter will do. And if you don't have any type of chunky glitter, I normally have this sitting on my table here. So this is what I'm talking about. Any type of like, look at how nice this glitter is. It just shines beautifully. And if you don't have that, diamond stickles, always the way to go for me. It doesn't have to be diamond. You could use gold, you could use silver, whatever you have on hand. If you have Nouveau drops, go ahead and bust those out. Anything that is an embellishment like that's just going to add extra shine, go ahead and grab that. So let's get started. As I mentioned, we have these 6 layers cut out. So hopefully you've had a bit of time to do that as I've been gassing. I will gas for a couple more minutes here just to give you a bit of extra time to cut if you're cutting. So the main thing with this class is I want you to get a good idea of what type of details you can add to your projects. Another good idea or thing to have on hand are micron pens. So I have this big set of micron pens, but basically These are nice to use because they are equivalent to like archival ink. So they have archival ink. So these are going to be great to use, especially with stamped images and things like that. With die cuts, this adds great details. Another one you might want to have on hand if you're using darker die cuts is the white jelly pen. That comes in handy too. So I like to have that around in case. So these types of things you can always use to add details. And when I say details, you don't want to add like, I'm going to give you ideas from the cards that I've made previously. Actually, let's have a look at those. So these are my sample cards, and you'll see that they're only subtle details. They're little things. So that chunky, I think this is stickles. I just put stickles on the edge of the balloon. Even on the balloons, I've got like a bit of a bouquet effect. Like I've got little dots, those little bits of extra detail. They're very subtle, but it makes the card come together nicely. And my biggest reason for liking these details is it gives your card a unique look. So I've also, if you notice, this dot 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 is what I added with the archival ink marker. And I also stamped my sentiment differently. I stamped it on the balloons, so that also makes a huge difference. I added these little gems in 3s and 2s because they look kind of nice like that along the balloons. That's also another detail. Even here, see this little detail? That's just drawing the little bottom of the balloon. That's not on the die. I just added that, but that just adds just a little bit more to your design. Plus I love this. I love adding textures and different things that are gonna make your card stand out. So using the twine, that comes in handy too. On this one, now this one was more simple. However, if you look in the background, you'll see lines on here. And this is such an old trick that everyone used to do back in the day, but not so much anymore. I just basically used my scoring tool and scored lines on there to give it that nice corrugated look. And then I also used, this is the glitter paper from the bundle. I've got the chunky glitter. This is that same chunky glitter I showed you that just adds a beautiful shine on these die cut cupcakes. And here, the dimension. That's also a bit of detail. So it's not just foam. I've got layers of vellum, which actually give it a nice look. And I thought that it kind of went with the bottom of the cupcake, right? Because you know the cupcake bottoms are made from like a vellumy parchment type paper. So I thought that just gave it a nice look there. And then your embellishments. So all of this then comes together nicely. Now keep in mind, see, look, the layered vellum, I didn't use it in this card. And stamping differently, I didn't use it in this card. So you're gonna wanna pick and choose different things to use. I'd say maybe 3 or 4 things, but don't put every type of detail on one card. Like I didn't have any drawn details here because I find that's kind of the limit. If you put too many details, then it looks a bit too busy, and then you might not be, you might not like the card you have in the end. So do, you know, as I said, make them subtle and just add about 3 to 4 different things that I mentioned. So one of, you know what, I'll go over it in the end of this video so we can kind of have, you know, something you can walk away with here, right? So here are my 6 layers. Let's go ahead and start putting these together since we've been sitting here with them and you've had time to kind of cut them out. So I'm just gonna grab some plain old, what is this? Barely Arts glue. I know that there are other ones that are a bit more popular nowadays, but I stick with this one because I find that especially for smaller detail die cuts like this, it gets like the frame a little better. Now I'm not going to go over everything, and I'm going to end up getting this over my table because I don't know about you, but when I'm crafting, sometimes I get a little lazy. It's mainly because I want to see the card come together, right? So let's stack this and put like dots of glue where we can and put it together. So I always like to ask this in videos because I know that the consensus, it varies a bit, but do you like to kind of clean up as you go along? Are you someone who kind of does everything and put all your stuff to the side, and then in the end, that's when you'll clean everything up? Or there is a number 3, another choice. Do you kind of craft, make a huge mess, and then like at the end of the month, clean everything up? Or maybe a bit of both, because I find that sometimes I'll craft and I'll clean up as much as I can, but then there's always like little bits that get left. Always like bits of cardstock get left, and then I kind of have to clean that up later. So I don't know, let me know in the comments if you clean up as you go, or if you clean up at the end, or you do both. So we'll go ahead and keep adding our layers. Now keep in mind, you're going to keep the last layer. So I like to kind of keep it aside so I don't accidentally attach it. Otherwise, you know, things like that have happened. Worse things have happened. But you can always cut an extra layer if that happens. There's always ways to fix things. And that's another thing about details. By adding details, like adding embellishments and things like that, I always tend to be able to cover up any mistakes I make. Like for example, if say I'm ink blending and the ink kind of goes over the stencil or something like that, I've got my embellishments ready to cover up anything that's wrong. See, look here. I forgot to poke out one of the little bits here, but that's completely fine because we're just stacking them on top of each other. I can still go ahead and do that now. This little piece here. Not to worry. Okay. One more layer. I know this is taking a bit of time, but trust me, it'll be worth it in the end. Let's go ahead, finish up this layer, make sure it's all nice and together. All right, so you can see now I've got some thickness here, right? I've got some depth, some breadth, and you can see some layers. You can kind of fix up where you haven't fully stuck things down on each layer. Now we are going to use this as a shaker on our card. So you want a card base ready to go. So now that we've got that card base, oh look how nice that looks already. So we are going to put this onto the card base to create our wells. Because, and this here you want to make sure you glue really well. Because you want, especially, so I'm going to say pay attention to the balloons. So the actual balloons, we want those to close completely because that's where we're going to put our shaker bits. Right? If you don't get the little squiggly, you know, strands here for like the bottom of the balloons, the little strings that hang from it, that's fine. We just want these circles here. These ovals, right? Because these are where we're going to put our shaker bits. So let's go ahead. Now, keep in mind, I'm using this glitter, or sorry, the embellishments from the kit. There is another like gem embellishments. I wouldn't recommend using that here because you're not going to see the gorgeous shine of that gem because we're going to cover this with vellum because we want the shaker to be subtle, right? A subtle detail. Delightful, subtle. I should have called this workshop Subtle Details. But, no, the more subtle the better, especially because we are adding quite a few details. All right. That way we don't get our card looking too busy in the end. But I mean, who am I to say what's right and what's wrong, right? Like, do whatever you feel. You know, I think when we're card making, sometimes we're a bit too hard on ourselves. Oh, this is not perfect. We finished making our card. This doesn't look great. The colors don't go well. They don't match. This didn't turn out well. I know I do it. I'm sure you all do it. But remember, this is art. And the beauty of art is that it's an expression. It's expression of your mood. It's an expression of your thoughts. And if I'm having like a day where I'm just not with it, my card's not going to be with it either. That's just the way it goes. So I've got now my shaker bits, and I'm not going to add too much. I just want a little bit, just for a little bit of fun here. And I've got a little, this is actually a lab scupula that I have from when I was working in the lab. Probably from Ohio University or something. Anyways, there are a bunch of other scoops there out on the market. If you don't have a scoop, just use your fingers. Not a big deal. So we're just adding a little bit, to add a little bit of pizzazz to these. Sorry about the pings in the background there. So we are just adding little bits to give it a little bit of fun. You can see that these, even if it goes in different wells, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We're not being too exact here. You just want to get some of it in there to make this card fun. Oops, all over the place. Okay, so we'll get these in the wells. Like I said, I don't want too much, but these bigger balloons need a little more. It doesn't help that they're very staticky. Okay, so I think just a little bit here, and I think that's good. I didn't even notice there's little gem ones. They look really cute. Okay, and then there's little moons, there's little butterflies, there's little hearts, there's little confetti round dots. Very, very minimal. Okay, we're not adding too much. So now we have to add this. Okay, so I'm going to cut this down. I probably should have cut it first. I'm sorry about that. Or you can add it and cut it after. That way you know you get like a perfect cut. So we're just going to take this. I put my card to the side. I'm going to cut this. I want 5. So this die is exactly 5.5 by 4.25. So that's how we're going to cut it. Cut this at 5.5. 4.25. If you want, you could make it a little less. And I'm going to cut it just a tiny bit less so that it doesn't stick out the ends. Just a tiny bit. Okay. Now let's put that vellum to the side. Now again, you want to add that glue nicely. So particularly around the edge. Take your time. I find that sometimes I rush a little too much because I want to see the final product, right? I just want to see how it looks in the end. Okay, I'm just going to kind of hold that in place. So because I'm using liquid glue, it does make sense to kind of add the glue after. If you think that you can add the sequins or the confetti to the wells without it sticking, go ahead and add your glue first. I always like to say choose which method or order of doing things works best for you. Because what might work for one person isn't always going to work for another. I just realized there's nothing in that well there. And okay, I think that's good. I did miss, it's okay, you know what, I'm not going to bother. You want to know why? It's subtle. It's subtle. It might get covered too by our sentiment. So we're going to put this on. And that's why we still have the top layer. Like you can see the glue sticking, which is great. So it has like an orangey look. See, look at that. Just very subtle. Very subtle in the balloons there, right? So they just kind of hang near the bottom of the balloons. And then, while that's kind of adhering, we'll go ahead and add the last layer. And that's the background of our card. That's just the background. We still have to cut out the cake, add a bit of color and some details, and put it on. I'm all about the details. So my name is Deepa. You probably know that by now from the class and the advertising and everything, but I have done like a lot of design work for a lot of other design teams. You might not have heard of me because I was designing a lot and then I kind of went back to work and that kind of died down a bit. So I'm glad that I get to teach this class with you, and I hope that I see more of you because It's been nice conversing with all of you. And I hope we can build a rapport. So, anyways, so I think what I was trying to say earlier where I kind of lost my train of thought is I like details. So I always love putting the card together. I always rush to get it together because I want to do the details. The final part, my favorite part, always, always, always is embellishments. Oh, look how great that looks. Oh my God, I actually turned out really nice. You know, I don't even have to do the cake. Like, this is really nice. You could just put a sentiment on that and you're good to go. Maybe just add some gems here. That'd be great. But we have more to this card. That's just the background. So now that we're done with this plate, we'll get that out of the way. What I want to do now is die cutting. So for the die cutting, I'm going to do that off camera. I'll give you a minute to do that too. If you put your cake, your party thing together or background together early, you can go ahead and cut out what you want. So this is what I'm going to do. This portion of the cake, the bottom half, I'm actually going to cut out of white cardstock and I'm going to add ink color because I find that that's the easiest for me. And then for this portion, this part is going to be vellum because it's going to be the frosting and that vellum is going to give it that extra fun look. So for both of these tiers, that's how I'm going to cut that out. So you could just cut, you know, one from the vellum, or you could, you know, if you're conserving vellum and cardstock, just put vellum, like, you know, just cut only this part of it, okay? So it's up to you. You can cut the whole thing or half of it so you don't waste your vellum. Up to you. And now I've just stuck my vellum to the packaging. So for this part, get it off. This part is where I'm going to use the specialty cardstock. So I'm actually just going to cut a piece right now. I'm going to stick it on here. And what I like to do is just cut out in pieces what I'm going to be using. So I'll cut this out. And then everything is sticking. That's from white and vellum. Cut out the candles twice because we want 3 candles and there's only 2 here. So we're going to cut this out from white cardstock twice. This is going to be cut from that light green cardstock that I had. And I'm not sure if I'm going to use this little puff of cream here, but I will cut it out of white cardstock. And this I'm going to cut out of that pink vellum. This is where the pink vellum comes in. So that's where I'm going to cut this out of, okay? And I think I'll also cut it out of white for this part. So let's go ahead and do our die cutting, okay? I'm doing my die cutting off camera and I don't want to show you a blank screen. So I'm going to come back with everything cut. Now, you can decide what you want to do, and I might change it up as I go along. You could also use the other sentiment if you want. You don't have to use the celebrate. There's, I think, a happy birthday or something like that. I can't remember because I don't have all the products on the table here with me. So you can use the shadow with it, or you can just use the letters. I think, I don't know. I'm deciding. But I think I'm going to stick with the letters for now. I'm going to grab this gorgeously pink cardstock. And I'm going to cut. See, so that's another thing with these glitter papers. I can just use the pink if I want to. I don't have to cut that blue and use it. So that ombre effect, you can use the ombre effect on your projects if you want, or you can stick to one thing. So you kind of get like more for your buck, right? Because you're paying for like, instead of just getting like 5 colors, like repeated 4 times, you're getting a whole bunch of colors, right? So let's see how that comes out. Okay, great. I like when it kind of stays in like that because then I don't lose all the pieces. So we're just going to keep that like that. I'm not going to detach the little pieces until I'm ready to put it together so that I don't lose them, the letters. All right, Easy lights. I have never used these. I've heard they're really easy to use. This is going to end up going behind our layers. So I'll just get it out and put it to the side so I don't forget, because I do that. I forget these things. There are 3 batteries in there. So I'm assuming they go in here and you just kind of put it wherever. So it's the negative. I always get confused. So the positive goes up here. It goes on this side. You stick it in. Did I do it the wrong way? There we go. The button's down here. Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Look at that. It just doof, light, doof. So always check it before you use it, just in case something's faulty with one of the lights. Although I'm pretty sure they're all good. And we're gonna add, I shouldn't have got that out yet. One here, add it anywhere. There's really no rhyme or reason. Okay, so for colors. So any colors you have on hand works fine. Any inks you have on hand works fine. You do not have to use what I'm using. I've got some fuchsia Altenew ink and an Altenew blending brush. This is a deep color. I'm going to turn this sideways, and what we're going to do is we're going to sweep color to create a bit of a, and you're going to go with like the angle of, so I'm going to start off of it because we just want to lightly sweep. You see that? You get the lines of the brush creating the sweep. And also around the top as well. So you can see that effect is pretty subtle, right? We're just adding pops of color here. This one's a little larger. Now that you've done the small one, you've got a bit of practice. Just sweep, sweep, sweep the color along. And you might want to add a little more pressure near the bottom as you come up to create some more depth. Same at the top. I'm just going to come back. I really haven't taken that much ink on my brush, but you'll notice this is a deeper color, right? You want that deeper color to break up the white. And you'll notice when you're done, it like gives it a nice look. What else did you expect, right? Now I'm gonna grab a lighter pink. So I'm gonna have to clean this brush off a little. It's always harder when you go from a darker to light color. So, and this brush is pretty pink. So I like to kind of just grab my color, and now I can see my color has picked up the new color. I'm not gonna get the wrong color on there. So here, I'm not gonna do anything too fancy. Just add the color on. So this one's more of like a powdery pink. And you don't have to like make it, you know, I'm varying my pressure so that there's a bit of like depth to it. And then same with the little puff, we're just gonna add little bits of pink. Very lightly. Very light pink on that puff. Very, very subtle. You probably can't even really see it in here. So I think that's pretty much it for our ink. Oh wait, what about the candle? So if you have a detail brush that would come in handy here, I just can't find it. So I'm just gonna wing it. There, look, pretty simple. Just get the little tops. Good to go. Okay. Now, another thing I want to do, okay, remember we talked about, actually just leave it here. Leave it there. Remember what we talked about adding written details with markers, pens, things like that. So the archival pen, I'm popping it out here. So here's the detail we want to add. I'm going to come in close a little bit so you can see a little better here what I'm doing. All I'm doing, I've got the number 5 micron pen. It's got a little bit of thickness to it. It's not too thin. We're just going to add the little lines. Yeah. These have little lines on them. And you just want to keep your strokes light. And make sure it sticks, otherwise it really travels. You don't have to do this. If you don't like the lines, you don't have to do this. I like the lines. Maybe you feel like the lines look better in pink. Grab a pink Copic and maybe go over it. So those are the lines on the candle. Now for this, I think I want to grab a thinner marker. What do I got here? That's not thin enough. Really thin. There we go. This is number 2. Now, remember you're going to have this. This is your top layer. So it's a glaze, which is why we put it in vellum. You could, I don't know, I don't want to add too much. You know, I don't want to overdo it. Kind of thinking you could just do a few lines here at the bottom. Although we are going to add a different type of detail there. So you know what? I'm just going to leave that. I was going to add like some lines. If you don't have chunky glitter, you can add them, because we're going to add some chunky glitter at the bottom here. Or possibly, actually, let's just do it. We're just adding some details. We're adding some shading, right? Other than, right? You don't have to do this again. If you don't like it, don't do it. It's just a little bit of artsy fartsy details to kind of add to that roundness. It's very, very little, okay? Just adds a little bit of shading. Oh, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna zoom out a bit, is I wanna put my cake together. So first thing I'm gonna do, remember this is gonna go on top. I'm just gonna add little dots. So we'll add a little dot here, a little dot here, and I'm just gonna attach it. Okay, so that's one layer. Second layer. Oops, that's not what I want. Same thing, a little dot here, little dot there. That way no one can see it. And attach. And then I just like to kind of line it up. So these are our 2 glaze layers. Now I want to stack it because I want to kind of figure out where I'm going to put this little guy here. Where I'm going to put my lights. Uh-oh, I think they're stuck. Oh dear, I got my lights stuck. Okay. So we probably like want to press and then kind of wrap it to come up. So what I'm going to do is, to give it a bit of room, I'm going to add some foam adhesive if I can get it. So I'll just add some foam adhesive to the bottom, like so. Pull that off. I will adjust everything else later. And then this is the top layer. This I'll just use glue because we're going to put foam behind. So just get this where you want it. Stick it down. Now I find with this Barely Arts glue you have to wait a little bit for it to get tacky, then it sticks very well. Remember, we're gluing this on vellum. It's a slick surface compared to just cardstock, so it'll take a minute. Okay. And okay, so for the candles, we're gonna have to be really careful with these. I don't know how I'm gonna get them to line up with the leads. So those are our 3 candles. And you could have them straight, you can have them kind of coming out like this. Maybe put the little puff there. Maybe that's what I'll do. So here comes the fun part. You want your leads to kind of go behind here. So like this is what you're gonna want, right? So in order to get this to stick, I'm just gonna add tape. Okay, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Add the tape. And we're gonna cut it. Okay, we're gonna cut it. So I stuck the lead on. Okay, I'm gonna grab some smaller scissors. Let's just leave that for a second. Okay, so you can see I've got my smaller scissors and I'm just gonna cut along there. Okay. Same on the other side. Don't cut your lead, be very careful. Right along the edge of that candle. So I kind of got it right there. So when I turn it on, okay, and we'll do that for the other 2 as well. Don't worry if they get tangled, they're gonna go up behind stuff. So I'm gonna grab the long one, same deal. Turn it over. I'm gonna use the same piece of tape, just tape it. Tape that sucker down. Got 'em. All right. It's probably like, I like that the leads are small that you can do this. Actually, this is really cool. I didn't expect to be able to do this. As I said, I'm learning with you. Teaching you, but I love to teach and learn at the same time. That way, when I make mistakes, you can learn from them and not make the same mistakes I make, right? All right, let's do the last one. They seem to be sticking pretty well. I'll give this little technique that it's sticking pretty well. Okay, more tape. Sorry, I wish my nails weren't so big so you could see better. But it's just like, it's surgery. We're just being an electrician with actual tape versus electrical tape. Okay, so now we've got them all. Let's make sure they still work. Perfect. Okay, so now I gotta try and get these on here. So I'm just gonna add just a little bit of glue here. I'm gonna add the little fluff, a little bit of cream. This is gonna have to go this way. Okay, for now, I'm just gonna tape it. Just gonna tape this down so I know it's there. Okay, Okay, it's not going anywhere. And then what I want to do is I'm gonna spin those guide wires. Okay. And I am lightly gonna tape this as well. Okay, because I don't want these wires sticking out. Okay, I'll adjust it better once I've got these guys in their spot. So I can move this one down a little, or what I can do is I can twist it. So this one I'm gonna have coming out like this. I'm gonna tape this, lots of tape on the back here. Okay, so that's one. Okay, we're gonna put the big one in the middle. So here, because I use the tape, I can still kind of pull some of the wire out if I need to. This one's gonna go up there, so I'm gonna grab some more tape. Take that down. So this little puff of cream really comes in handy to kind of hide all of this. And then I'll tape this down too. Last guide wire. Look at that. Now when I go boop, oh, it lights up. That's just so cool. Okay, so we did surgery here with tape. Now that you got everything where you want it, you might want to add just a little bit more tape. Make sure nothing's going to move. Okay, and the press point's going to be here. Now, we want to attach this to our card. Now for the Celebrate, I did kind of pull out all the letters. I left the E in to show you that there is like a little bit of a plastic backing. So you kind of have to pop these out. So you can pop it out gently so that you don't rip your letter. I already did rip the A and I had to cut it again off camera. I didn't want to put that, oops. Didn't want to lengthen the video with that mistake because that's a simple fix, right? You just cut it again. And then you want to take these centers out too. So I like using the little pick to kind of pull it out, or you can grab some tweezers and pull that extra bit from the center out too. Okay? Okay, so we're done with that. Let's put the final bit of this card together and add our details. Whoa, so that really sits up there on this card. Now everyone's gonna put this in the center. I don't want to do that. I want to be different. So I'm going to put it here off to the side. Okay. And my letters, where's my C? Now I get to decide how I want my sentiments to go. So I was going to have it kind of come up the side, but this is pretty, like this cake stand's pretty big here. Maybe I could put it sideways here. I wanted to do something different. Part of the delightful details is that we do something different. We don't want everything to match. We don't want to be the status quo. Our details are what makes us stand out. And a tiny little detail like changing your sentiment or the angle where you put it, how you put it, is going to make your card unique. So here's where you want to use your bling tool. So now that I'm not using the shadow, I kind of have a bit of give in how I put these letters here. I don't have to stick to how the shadow is done. I just want to see what that looks like visually. Maybe I can put the C a little further down. Or do you think it would look cool if maybe I had it hug the cake? Does that look a little too off for you? Celebrate. Maybe if we started it a little further down, it might make a little more sense that it's hugging the cake. I actually kind of like that. It has like a cool little curve to it. I think that's how I'm going to do it. Okay. So, we want to attach this now. Now, our candles are pretty much, you know, they're on their own. I'm not gluing that down. I could add a little bit of foam there. Let's see. So we're gonna have to go with foam for this because it has all of this bulk back here. So I'm gonna add I think I'm gonna add 2 layers of foam. Because you don't want this to be pressed down, right? You want to have a bit of space to press. I'm going to use a larger piece of foam here. So foam tape is going to come in handy. And then I also have smaller foam squares. Now this, if you don't have the small foam squares, don't worry, you don't have to do this. I just want to make sure these candles are sticking. They're not going to move. They're going to go where I want them to go. I'm in control here, right? So let's take the backings off. Now, if you feel like you need a little more foam, like more adhesive, I'd put one here, and I'd put one here. Remember to double them up, so you have that space. Like I said, this card is not going to go in the mail, so don't worry about that height difference. Now, if you want it to go in the mail, then I do recommend, first of all, don't add all the foam. Second of all, don't add the lights. The lights are gorgeous. You could use them on another project that you know that you're gonna hand deliver. Besides all the dies, I think that my favorite part, okay, the dies and the glitter paper. So the dies and the glitter paper, I think my favorite part of this kit is the lights. I love adding interactive components to cards. They just give it a certain je ne sais quoi. Okay, so now we know how that's gonna go. Let's go ahead, add this, move that away. Okay. So here's our light. Oops, sorry, I'm off camera because I'm zoomed in a bit. Okay. So there we go. Now, let's add our sentiment. And don't forget all these extra bits. So these are details, right? You want to add like a little flower. We're gonna add some flowers. Okay, all this stuff. We're gonna layer these, right? And then I'll also add one behind. Okay, so I kind of like to do this to kind of see how things are gonna come together. And then you also have the leaves. Okay, so we'll just take those off. This is what I mean about getting ahead of myself. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's grab now our letters and glue them down so that we have the bulk of our card done, and it's just the extra other details we're gonna add. So I'll stick down the C and celebrate, the E, so my letters are slightly getting tucked behind that cake, but that's okay. I'm fine with it. If you're not, move your cake over a little. Okay, and the other thing I like about putting your sentiment, like your letters where you want, is they don't have to all be straight, right? When you're doing this kind of, you know, we're kind of moving that sentiment along where the side of the cake is. I don't have to worry about it being straight, so I don't, usually that's why I use shadow dyes. I don't always use it just because it looks good, but to keep the letters lined up the way they should be with the right spacing. But with this, I don't need to do that. So I'm just gonna finish adding this here. Hope I have enough space. And I don't think you can say you've seen all of these details somewhere else. Maybe some of them you've seen. I think this whole idea with moving or having our sentiment kind of hug our cake is really cool. It's very unique. You don't always see this kind of thing. And you're thinking outside of the box of how the product comes, right? So there's our celebrate, which I think looks really hip and cool. Let's go ahead. Now I want to zhuzh these up a little. So another option there is to kind of shape these a little. Now remember, this has a round edge. So you can kind of just, I don't have my sponge. Take a paper towel if you don't have one of those foam sponges for shaping, and just kind of go around the center. It kind of allows the petals to kind of pop up a little. It gives a little bit more of a 3D effect. So normally there's like, I think Spellbind just has like a sponge, and Sizzix does as well. There's this foam mat, okay? So you would do this on top of this, but for those of you who don't have it, and since I don't have it in my list, this is what you can use. Paper towel, because we're not doing anything extreme. We're just doing a little bit of shaping here, and you're using a bling tool, a stylus, right? This is more like a stylus. And now what I'm going to do is layer this. So what did we do? We did one here. So one in the corner here. So I'm just adding glue because I'm going to add a gem on top. Okay. We're just layering it. We want it to have dimension. And we don't want it to overlap. We want it to kind of, well, it overlaps, but we want it to haphazardly overlap so you can see the petals underneath, not so it all lines up, right? And I want to bring that down actually, because it's covering up too much of my sentiment. So I'm going to pull it down a bit. There, that's a little better. Not covering my sentiment as much. Okay, and then this one is going to go on the background. Just going to tuck it in here a little. Vellum on vellum. And this one. Now remember, if you don't have the colored vellum, you could use glitter paper here. The leaves, I think we should add the leaves to break up all of that pink, right? So I like to use a it's more like it goes this way. I like to kind of turn the card to how it works best for me. You do what works for you. And that you can agree that green kind of breaks up that pink a bit, right? I'm gonna add 2 on that side because I have an extra one. Okay. Now we have these strawberries. I don't know, should I use a strawberry or is it gonna be too much? What do you think? I think I can add the strawberry. It'll be fine. Just add a little bit here because I don't want too much adhesive. And then just because I feel like we just need a bit more green to break up the color. Pink, pink, pink. So much pink. Okay. Now our final details. I was going to use the chunky glitter, but I think I've changed my mind because this is just a little bit more delicate than I imagined, especially with the lights. So I'm actually going to grab my stickles. Okay, I'm using diamond stickles. I find that diamond, it just has a really nice color. And I'm just going to come, if I can get any of this to come out. Diamond's like my go-to. I tend to run out of it. Okay, so we're going to have it kind of come down here on the bottom of this vellum. Okay, you can see it's just shiny right there on that glaze. And this card actually has a lot going, so I'm not going to add too much more anymore. Okay, so that really makes that glaze stand out. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And one more thing left for this card. I mentioned embellishments. So these are my favorite embellishments. They're Meraki Sparkle Twilight Treasure Illusion. They have a nice like pinky effect to them, pinky yellow. I'm going to put them in the center of these flowers. So I'll find a size that seems to work for this flower. Does this? I think this does. And you don't have to keep picking the same size. You can pick different sizes to add some variation. I've added some big glue drops, so I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the same size. If I can find it. Okay. And then another thing I like to do is add these in 3. So 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to add 3 different sizes. I think this is the middle size. Here's the smaller size. And the biggest size is the this one. So 1, 2, 3. That's just a tiny little bit of sparkle, adds a lot. And I think that's it. We've got a lot going on here. I would say to add like a couple in the background, but I don't want to take away from the few ones that we added on top. And this is basically our final card for today. And now look, you've also got that extra bit of like shaker in the background. A nice subtle background. Now let's go through our details in order to complete this class. First detail, layers. So we've got these layers with vellum that we've got on the card here, okay? And we've also got a couple layers here, right? So layers is 1. 2, specialty cardstock. Use specialty cardstock wherever you can to add just a pop of shine. So we've got the glitter cardstock here, we've got the metallic cardstock here, we've got the matte cardstock here, okay? Or vellum. We've got vellum here, and we don't have it on that one, but we've got the glitter cardstock. Glitter. So we've got the stickles in any form, or you can use chunky glitter here, one or the other. You can see I've used it on all 3 of these products. I've got stickles here, chunky glitter, and stickles here. And the third, or I think the fourth thing, I'll keep track of it here for you guys, is to put your sentiment differently. We've got it hugging our cake here. We've just got a straight one here, plain and simple. But here we've got it on our balloons. So changing up how you do your sentiment is a very big detail. Everyone looks at the sentiment. That's something you're not going to miss, right? So that's another thing. The third last one is to add drawn on details like we did on the candle. We have a little bit of extra detailing here. I've also got detailing here on the balloons. Okay, so there's drawn on details. Then there's also, you see the scoring that I did here in the background, just the lines, you can see that scoring. That just adds a little bit of subtle detail. That subtle detail can also be found here in the background. So you've got all those shaker bits, but we're not showing them like, oh my God, here's the bright color. We've kind of muted them with that vellum, which I think looks really nice and creates a nice hint of party in the background, right? And then the final thing, bling. Bling it up, and I always like to bling in 2s or 3s. So I added the bling here, the gems. I've got these pearls here randomly in the background. And then I've also got the 3 here, and then as the center of my flowers there. And then, okay, sorry, I lied. The super duper bonus one that you get with this bundle is light it up. Light it up. Now if you wanted, you could put something here that says to press, okay? Press, so that people know to do this. I'm just gonna leave it as is because I don't want to put that on there. If I were to give this to a recipient, I would say, hey, press the cake tray. And they'll say, oh, that's so cool. So that was my delightful details class for today. I hope you guys found something that you can take away from this, and I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to leave comments down below. I'll definitely be checking them later on, even if you add them after. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next class.